the Meru National Park was fenced. But we are still experiencing a lot of influx from the local animals, which are causing a lot of conflicts between the park and the locals. The same park is being used as a conduit for bandits. When animals are stolen from the Raka, the same park is being used as a conduit to make sure that animals walk through those parks. I don't know for what reasons, because, and it's a government facility. So people from the Raka would want to know whether your ministry is aware that the Meru National Park is quite a number of times used as a conduit to transport stolen animals from the Raka people.
Senator Maruma Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to seek clarification from the CS on which law is being implemented. In 2018, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly attempted to change the Wildlife Management Act of 2013, and there were two things that were amended. The first one was removing the snake from the schedule of animals for compensation. The second one was the changing of the composition of the wildlife conservation committees, the county wildlife conservation committees. Initially, the Wildlife Conservation Committee was chaired by an eminent person who is knowledgeable in matters conservation. It was changed to have the county commissioner to chair the county wildlife conservation committees. Those two items, Mr. Speaker, were in that amendment for 2018. That was done by National Assembly, but National Assembly did not seek concurrence with
Senator
the
Maruma,
Senate.
Senator Maruma, I'm afraid I'm going to stop you there.
Yes.
Your question has already been asked. Allow the Honorable CS to ask.
It's just clarification because
which act is in operation. You have asked the question. I'll stop you from there, kindly.
Thank you so
We
much.
need to progress.
Okay,
Honorable
okay.
CS, lastly, I'll allow Senator Chute so that you can respond to that batch of questions, and we move on to the next.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I had an opportunity to visit KWS headquarters yesterday. This is in relation to a mzee from Marsabit by the name Borufa Kansa, who died 3 weeks ago. They had crop destruction, and he was waiting for this compensation from the, for the last 9 years, from 2014. And I was surprised to note that there are a lot of approvals for compensation that is awaiting payment from the Treasury. Number two, there are lots of claims at the county level awaiting committee verification for payment. What I want to ask the Honorable CS is the lots of claims that are being expected at the county level needs your approval. Mr. CS, what are you going to do, or how soon are you going to convene these committees to verify the compensation for the people of Marsabit County? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Chute. Honorable CS, you may proceed to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, honorable members, for the questions. I'll start with the question by Senator Uma. It's always good to hear not very many people stand and speak for the rights of monkeys. And thank you for that. I think it's a brilliant idea of planting fruit trees, mangoes and others that the animals like, so that we can also supply them with food that they want. And it's something that I'm going to look at, because we look at mitigation areas, even as we open up other areas. We have, we're looking at also wildlife corridors and dispersed areas, and we have a report that we're compiling to look at how we can be able to live with those animals, because sometimes those monkeys transverse from one area to another area, and then we've blocked where they pass through. And so as a result, they're not able to go from one area when it dries up to one area where there's food. And so as a result of that, they end up in our shambas. And so we are looking at all that so we could also advise. It's a big challenge throughout the country in terms of the blocking of corridor areas of animals. At times animals just want to pass and go their way. But then if they find a house, they find a farm, they find people where they're not supposed to be, then those accidents happen. But thank you for those ideas, Honorable Senator. I really appreciate them. And we will implement them in a chap-chap formula very, very quickly. Mheshimiwa Senator, good friend from Tharaka Nithi, about the cultural event. Yes, last year the Cabinet Secretary attended that function, and the monies that were promised, I can promise you in this house that next week I have a meeting, and I'll make sure the monies are allocated, and that is done. And I'll also work closely with the governor to ensure that we also share resources so we can do a good job. And I'll be visiting Tharaka Nithi as one of my first stops to look at what we can do in terms of tourism. On your question about Meru National Park, yes, I'm aware of some of the challenges. You are aware, Honorable Senator, because you're in the know that we had a security operation there just the other day of bandits and people using that as a corridor, and we're working on it because they're able to, affect the fence and go in and go out. At times they're going in, fattening the animals and moving further. But it's something that I'm aware of, and we are taking care of it together with other state agencies. Thank you, my very good friend, Senator Maduma, about your question about the amendment. As you know, it is a 2018 amendment, and you've said it right about the removing of the Snakes and Wildlife Committee. But I have a question that has been sent to me also by the other house about the same issue. So I think it's more of a technical issue, and I'm not able to answer at this time. And I think it's a technical issue between the Senate and Parliament in terms of some of those things that need to be taken care of, housekeeping to be done by this house and the other house. But it's a good point you're making. My good friend from Marsabit, and my condolences for the loss of the Mzee who passed away despite waiting for all these years and not being paid. And that's a story everywhere. It breaks my heart. Families, even people die, and they stay for years. Their families are in poverty. They are the breadwinners. They've not been compensated. It's a really big problem. And I request you, as you've pointed out in your statement, maybe you can also intervene with this with Treasury so they also understand the importance of this issue, because it's an issue of life and death. Just as we are buying medicines for people, just as we are doing important things, compensation is critical, especially where people have lost their lives or been maimed and they cannot continue. And I would like to be able to pay everyone. I'd like to confirm to this house that the committee verification, it's already started. It is ongoing. And for the 1.1 billion, I want to be able to pay that money very quickly without any delays, as long as Treasury is able to give us that money. I have 1.5 billion shillings seated somewhere. If Treasury approves, that money is available to start paying even tomorrow. But we are yet to get the necessary approval. With a bit of flexing your muscles of this house, we may be able to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will take the last batch of questions, and I'll begin with Senator Mungatana.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi. Bwana Spika, swali langu lilikuwa ni fupi. Kule kwetu Tana River, Bwana Spika, tuko na shida kubwa sana ya wanyama. Kwanza nataka waziri aifanye priority, afanye safari tupange, aje awasikize wananchi vile Tana River tunaumia. Watu wanakufa sana, lakini swali langu ni hili: ni mipango gani ambayo waziri yako nayo kuongeza askari wa game, kule kwa tunaita game au KWS, kwa sababu mara nyingi hawa ndio huwa wanatusaidia, lakini ukiangalia namba zao zimepunguzwa kabisa. Ukiangalia sehemu ya Delta hapa katikati Tana River sub county, ukiangalia Tana North sub county, namba zimepungua badala ya kuongezeka, na shida zetu zinazidi kuongezeka. Je, waziri, ni mipango gani ambayo uko nayo kutuongezea wasimamizi wa wanyama wa pori katika gatuzi dogo la Tana River? Asante Bwana Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Mungatana. Senator Mbugua George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your indulgence, I would request the Cabinet Secretary to appraise this House on the reports of harassment by visitors at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and what effect it has had on tourism and what the government is doing to alleviate the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Bugwa. Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in Baringo County, there is a game reserve called Lake Kapnorok Game Reserve. And there has been serious conflict between the residents of that area and the wildlife in that particular game reserve. And I wanted to know from the minister, sometimes some of the game reserves, Mr. Speaker, provides pasture for livestock within those areas. And sometimes because of the conflict between the wildlife and the residents, there is a lot of inhuman harassment of the residents of that area. Mr. Speaker, I want to know from the minister if it is possible for his ministry to have MOUs, memorandum of understanding between the game reserve management and the people, so that during dry season, Mr. Speaker, then the people are allowed to graze in the game reserves. Because, Mr. Speaker, the game reserves really is a resource within our communities. And I think the conflict should be managed in a manner that there should be some understanding, so that the locals can be allowed to graze, and with understanding that that is an important resource for them. Is the ministry able to engage communities under MOUs and allow people to graze in the game reserves with understanding?
And lastly, Senator Tobiko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to hear that the ministry is now going to do dams and water pans at the park areas, because really this has been the biggest contributing factor of the human-wildlife conflict, as the wildlife get out of the parks to get water from private water pans, Mr. Speaker, and communal water pans. And so I believe with a lot of water pans and dams done at the park areas, that will then lessen the human-wildlife conflict in our areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, because we have areas where the human-wildlife conflict is really a major issue, has stopped children from going to schools. In our county around Kiboko area, Poka Kenyawa ward, Mr. Speaker, it's a big issue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second thing is about the snakes, Mr. Speaker. I know we are not allowed to kill the snakes. But even if there was compensation, which there isn't, on snake bites, Mr. Speaker, it's natural. When you see a snake, the next thing you imagine is that it will bite and kill, Mr. Speaker. And so I just want the minister to note that the truth is that we are killing snakes, because we come from places where the pufferdas, the black mambas, are all over, Mr. Speaker. And it's a natural instinct from human beings. You see a snake and you kill. In fact, I am ready to offer those who harvest, the poison from the snakes. I'm ready to offer them a place in my home to camp, so that they can get the snakes and get, the poison thing, the one they use to go and make, the antivenom, Mr. Speaker. Because this is a daily occurrence in our places. The pufferdas are so many. The black mambas are so many. And then my last contribution, Mr. Speaker.
Actually, Senator Tobiko.
Yes.
I had given you an opportunity to ask the Cabinet Secretary a question, but I've noticed you have commented.
Allow me to do the last, Mr.
Because
Speaker.
of your comments, you have confessed to the killing of snakes on a daily basis. Kindly close on your comments so that the CS
Okay, let me close this way, Mr. Speaker. I have been wondering why KWS does not take time to do an awareness creation campaign within the communities that live with wildlife, so that when I see a black mamba, I know how to behave. And when someone sees an elephant, they know how to behave. When they see a hyena, they know how to behave. Because sometimes people kill these animals because you do not know how to escape from them. You do not know that this one may be harmless. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure if KWS was to do an awareness creation campaign within the communities, or even be teaching the children in schools on the various behaviors of animals and how they should be handled, I'm sure still we will be able to reduce the human-wildlife conflict. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, before you respond, I have a communication to make. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 45 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Riara International School in Nairobi City, County, who are on an education visit to the Senate. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I will ask Senator Boni Halwale to welcome them in the Senate. Under 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the privilege to acknowledge our children. Mr. Speaker, Riara schools have made a very big contribution to the education of this nation. I therefore wish to welcome the young people plus their teachers and assure them that as we sit down here in the chamber, their round faces reminds us God's message that the world will never come to an end. In the coming days, some of them will be in this house, in the other house, in our county assemblies. There'll be doctors like me, there'll be lawyers like you, there'll be teachers like many, and so on and so forth. We wish you well, and all the children of Kenya who are now sitting exams, we wish you good luck. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Boni. Honorable CS, you may respond now to that last batch of questions from the honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to acknowledge the students who are here from Riara. I think it's a very good, I remember my days as a student visiting different areas where we got a lot of interest and we learned quite a few things. Nianza na swali la Mheshimiwa Danson Mungatana kutoka kwa ndugu zetu wa Tana River kuhusu shida ambayo imetokea kule kwa sababu ya upungufu wa wasimamizi wa wanyamapori. Napenda kuambia kwamba shida ambayo tumekuwa nayo ni upungufu wa watu wa kutosha. Hivi sasa rais wetu ametupa ruhusa ya kuweza kuajiri zaidi ya karibu 1,500 wapya kwa wasimamizi. Kwa hivyo tutaanza kuajiri hivi karibuni, tutatangaza, wengi tutatoa kule kwa National Youth Service ndio waweze kuwa ukiitana wako hapo wanaweza kuhudumia kwa njia ambayo inafaa, na tukipata hela zaidi tutaweza kuongeza wengine. Nipenda pia kuarifu ya kwamba katika mna shida tofauti katika upande wa Tana River kwa sababu ya ule uhusiano ama kuishi karibu na wanyama, na pia katika zile shida ambazo zimewakumba, na sio mamba peke yake, ni wengi. Lakini tayari tumelipa katika muhula ambao umepita huu ambao unaendelea, tumelipa shilingi milioni 77 kwa wale ambao wameathiriwa katika county ya Tana River. Moving on to the second question about harassment of tourists and visitors at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It is a real concern that I've spoken about. I'd like to inform this House that the Minister for Roads and Transport held a very important meeting with his team, and he has initiated procedures and changes that will be undertaken to make sure that the airport is operating properly in many ways, from its physical perspective to the way the operations run, to the way visitors are received. We're working closely together as one team of government and the Kenya Kwanza government, and we are going to ensure that this does not happen. Yes, definitely, when people feel harassed, there's a problem. I was telling the members, I was telling the Commissioner General of KRA that you always have to look at the bigger picture. That most of us, when you're growing up, we were given the duty of running after chicken. So we could catch the chicken whenever we had a visitor, so the chicken could be slaughtered. And you could run all over and try to catch the chicken. But at times we saw what our fathers did. Instead of running after the chicken, they just used maize. And they would drop, one seed of maize, we can call it a seed of maize, and the chicken would bite it, another one, and you get close, and they catch, and they're able to get hold of the chicken. You don't calculate the cost of the chicken, because the cost of the maize, because if you concentrate on the small pieces of, maize comb, you lose the bigger chicken. So we're trying to tell them that, yes, at times you may want people to be charged for this and this, but let's look at the bigger picture. Furthermore, I realize that they have been harassing people who don't need to be harassed. For example, you carry your phone. I was there just the other day. I was visiting, I was traveling, and I saw them stop a lady who just had her 2 old phones in her bag, and they made her open her bag. What's the deal about having 2 or 3 phones? You aren't allowed to have 2 or 3 phones? And it's different. If you're carrying a package of phones to sell, you need to pay duty. You're carrying your own individual phones, and they can tell they're not in a package. Why do you even need to stop the person to verify that? So there's a lot of education that needs to go to our people that we're working together to be able to raise enough system. But work is being implemented, and the future is bright. About the question, very good question about Baringo. It's good to note that we can't just allow domestic animals to go and graze in game reserves. That's where they're set as game reserves. We know there's that challenge where people need to go and get fodder and all that. And we've entered into agreement with several counties. We've entered into agreement with Mbere, with Shimba, Mbere, Conservancy, Shimba Hills Conservancy, and South Kitui Conservancy about how to do some of these things. But there's also the danger of diseases. As you know, Kenya wants to place itself as a big marketer of beef to the world. And if you start mixing animals for livestock with wild animals, there's a danger of transfer of diseases. And therefore, we can get to a place where all exports from Kenya are banned. And so we lose money. So it's also important. Also, diseases can be transferred to animals, and we eat those animals, and we fall sick and we die. So it's very important to keep the wild animals separated from the domestic animals, the livestock animals. But we can look at entering into an agreement with the game reserve in Baringo, and also to let the member of Senate know that this year we've paid 40 million to the people in terms of compensation to the people of Baringo. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the very good question from Senator Tobiko from Jirani Mwema from Kajiado is that, and it's good to say we had a senator here who spoke on behalf of the monkeys. It's good to see another senator speaking on behalf of the snakes. And it is true, education and awareness are key. Many people don't know how to identify animals and identify dangerous and non-dangerous snakes and how to deal with them. It's good to note that only 33% of snakes in Kenya are poisonous. 66% are not poisonous. Unfortunately, they don't have a uniform like the students of Riara, where you can tell these ones are from here or these ones are from here, which are poisonous, which are not poisonous. But we can educate people on how to keep away from the snakes. For example, people need to know that when you have chicken in your household, you're inviting snakes to come to your household. You're more in danger of getting snakes to your household when you have chicken around, because they come for the eggs, they come for the chicks. Put the chicken away from the household. That you can also put water buckets and dig, make some water areas for the snakes away from your home. So snakes zinapindukia huko, zinakunywa maji, zinaenda mbali. By also looking at the gala where you put your maize and ensuring that it is airy and you don't have rats. because they come for the rats and then they meet you on the way and then they bite you. So it's about awareness, and we are going to do it much better. I think it's a very good idea that work on that. About the antivenom, I had said earlier on that we are about to start manufacturing a process to end up manufacturing antivenom, snake antivenom in our country. So it doesn't have to come from far, but even in the meantime, I'm going to get snake antivenom everywhere. So even as we manufacture snake antivenom, we welcome your offer for us to come to your farm and milk the snakes and have that as part of research process. And also, just to let you know, and to let the members of the public know, Mr. Speaker, with the indulgence, is that wild animals are called animals because they are wild. You can't reason with them. You can't tame them. You can't tame a lion. And that elephants are dangerous animals and they are very fast. A normal human being, myself here and Senator Mungatana, who looks active, when we are running, I think the top speed we can make is 25 kilometers per hour. And that's time we are sweating like crazy. An elephant, when it's just jogging, will do 28, 30 kilometers per hour, 35 kilometers per hour. You cannot outrun an elephant. Even if you are far, it will catch up to you. And so we need to tell people how to keep away. If you see it flapping its ears, you know that's a danger. You keep away. You can't outrun an elephant. You may be far, but it will catch up with you very, very fast. So it's about being able to let wananchi know and being able to have a good program. And we're going to do something that is going to be effective using the media, local media, and also community education for people to know how to live with or near wild animals. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity and this session. And as we continue promoting our country, we have to be able to protect our wildlife. As you know, we are getting new visitors coming. I'm leaving here to rush to Nairobi National Park. The president of Romania is visiting. He's currently exploring the park. I want to be able to show him a few things as the interest in Kenya grows. Our president, William Ruto, has been able to arouse interest in our country, and we should see an influx of many people coming to our country. Kenya is being spoken about everywhere. I witnessed this in New York when I went to sessions in the United Nations, whereby once you get in and you raise your hand, they skip many other people to let Kenya speak first. Kenya is now an anchor nation in terms of how we have been looked at in the foreign world, and we should expect very many visitors to come to this country for tourism, for conferences and others, and it is our job to ensure they are comfortable and they're here so they can leave their money behind so we can create employment for our kids. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Members.
Thank you, Honorable CS. I will ask Senator Chimera to be the first person to ask you questions next time you appear, because he had a question. He came in when I had already exercised the discretion to close on the question time. I want to appreciate Honorable CS, together with your team, Madam Sylvia, PS, and the rest of the team that supports you, for taking time to come in and respond to the questions in this Honorable House. I'm very sure your involvement in answering these questions is giving us the comfort and the assurance as to the role your ministry is playing, and you will take into consideration a number of the proposals and comments made by members in furtherance of your work in the ministry. I would like to appreciate you once again and wish you and your team a very good day, and you stand released from the Senate. Thank you very much. Honorable members, we had two other CSs who were meant to be here today. We had the Honorable CS for Foreign Affairs and Treasury. We have received a communication from him that he, on official duty, has traveled outside the country and has excused himself. So question number 18 will be deferred, courtesy of a letter that came from the office of the CS. Secondly, the CS for Transport and Roads is to be here in a little while. He had a conversation with the chair and requested that he will join us in due course. So for purposes of us progressing, we will, in the meantime, deal with the next issues in the order paper as we await. Should they come in good time, should he appear in good time, we will proceed to deal with the questions that were scheduled for the ministry. And honorable members, earlier on, Senator Chute had taken us through the, had moved the motion on the extension of time. So I would like us to revert to that bit so that we progress on that. Senator Chute. Clerk, call the next order.
Order number 9, motion, extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation to the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi.
Senator Halwale, what is your point of order?
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, just some clarity on where we are going. Mr. Speaker, there were a number of ministers who were listed to appear before us. Amongst them, Mr. Yes? Mr. Speaker, amongst them, the minister, the cabinet secretary of roads, transport and infrastructure, who had a question number 65 on the fate of the presidential directive on upgrading of Kakamega airstrip to an international status. So, Speaker, we wanted you to guide us about that and other ministers who are involved so that we know. Yes.
I will, and I'm afraid, Senator Boni, you probably was not concentrating on the directive from the chair. I have indicated that the Honorable CS for Treasury and Foreign Affairs has written a letter which has been accepted to the House that he's asking to have his question deferred because he's on official duties outside the country. He therefore could not attend today. That I did say. Secondly, as regards the Honorable CS for Roads and Transport, there are actually more than 4 questions. There is question number 30, there is question number 47, question number 48, question number 56, question number 60, and question number 65. All these are directed to the CS for Roads and Transport. Communication which has been received is that he's traveling from Mombasa to attend to these questions. So we will, Honorable Cherargei, the chair is speaking. You can't interrupt the chair as he's giving his address. And I thought you are a ranking member to this, so you should be able to understand at what point do you bring in your point of order. I will give you the opportunity. So, Senator Boni, that one is the direction that we will give. We will have the CS for Transport to respond to these questions. The communication we have received is that he is on his way to join the House and respond to those questions. Senator Cherargei, what was your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, on a matter of procedure, I think this House had made a ruling that we can only wait for a minister or they can fail to attend a House on 2 occasions only. When they're attending parliamentary committee or parliament or when they're in cabinet. Mr. Speaker, could you clarify to this House which procedure would force the House to adjourn and re-adjourn to wait for a cabinet minister who was well versed that he should have appeared today at as from 9:30, looking at many issues, Mr. Speaker, sir, so that we don't build a tradition where in future if a cabinet minister feels that they don't want to come at 10, they will come at 12, and imagine that the House will freeze or proceed with other House business so that they can come. I think the neater way should have, even if they are busy, the neater way should have been to reschedule to a later date. Instead, because now, Speaker, unless you are making a different ruling that in future, if I'm a witness before the Parliament, and I'm given a time to appear at 9, and I get up or some of the reasons, I just decide to defer at 3 p.m. and tell the House that I will arrive at 3. So, Mr. Speaker, can you clarify so that in future, we don't open a window? You know, this is a house of rules and traditions, and then we don't want, when we summon or invite a witness before the House,
They can go to court and challenge and say at one point the cabinet CS was supposed to appear, but because he was traveling, the House decided to defer the matter until an hour or 2 hours later. So we need to be very clear so that we don't open a very dangerous window that will abuse the parliamentary privilege and the position of parliament, because we have agreed there are only two situations that you can avoid sitting, cabinet meetings and appearing before parliament. Can you clarify so that we don't risk other issues that might crop up in future? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed, Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, in addition to what my colleagues have said, I just wanted, Mr. Speaker, to say that it's important for cabinet secretaries to honor the summonses here. In particular, I was personally waiting for CS Murkomen because we have a national embarrassment at the airport where rain is falling. Rain is falling inside the international airport, Mr. Speaker, and it would have been an important position for him to clarify what is going on, because what the newspapers have reported, they are saying that he is talking about Jubilee administration. Mr. Speaker, how can we be talking about Jubilee administration 1 year down the road? We wanted the minister to come and clarify, and this is an important podium for him. Isn't that more important than traveling, Mr. Speaker, traveling to wherever? Mr. Speaker, I think you should be very firm about these ministers. We want them to honor the time that is in this house, Mr. Speaker, especially when important things that are embarrassing the nation. Mr. Speaker, imagine I'm being called by, a relative, my brother who is living outside, to tell me what is happening in Kenya. You can't even fix your airports. What's happening? Mr. Speaker, it's a national embarrassment, and the minister should have been here to clarify what he's going to do about it. I thank you, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Senator Cherargei. Thank you, Senator Mungatana. In fact, the more reason as to why the Honorable CS, I believe, was accommodated to come at around 11 is because of what you've just raised. As to the decision that this House took previously, that is the decision. It can only be at the point where the SBC has agreed to adjourn or to defer a question. Otherwise, all cabinet secretaries who are required to respond to questions are supposed to appear, unless otherwise it has been accepted by the SBC. In this case, we only had received this communication from the CS for Treasury as to his official engagement outside. This other assignment on other ministers who are meant to appear, including the CS for Roads, was to appear at 11 because SBC indeed said he must appear. But for what Honorable Mungatana has raised, he was engaged in that particular assignment, so that is the reason of his delay. There isn't any other reason as to why that has been accepted by the chair. Yes, Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker, sorry if I'm seen to be slowing the House, but I find it difficult to understand. Probably the clerks can guide us. Under what standing order do we wait for a minister? Mr. Speaker, we've been around for a while. We've never seen a situation whereby business of the House is being stood down so as to wait for a minister. And even if we are going to do it, Mr. Speaker, could you tell us, are we suspending the House?
Senator Boni, I had already indicated that we are calling the next order to deal with the motion for purposes of making sure that the business of the House is not suspended. Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, I want to repeat what my colleagues have said. With all tremendous respect, I know you have power to rearrange the order papers per the standing orders. But, how do we look before Kenyans if we can wait for a cabinet secretary? It is not, Mr. Speaker, can you rule that the CS should appear in next possible sitting so that we can proceed with other matters, Mr. Speaker? Because it's unmatched. I am not aware
You are talking about the issue of leaking roof in JKI, the issue of roads that have been swept away by floods. You know, these are issues that we needed the Cabinet Secretary Murkomen to come and clarify on what the ministry is putting interventions of floodings in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, what we are arguing is just for neatness of the House. Since now you have rearranged the order paper, which you have powers to as per the standing order, can you direct that? Because if Senate becomes the first parliament, in fact, parliament does not even wait for a president. If we wait for a cabinet minister by the name Murkomen, it will be a national embarrassment plus what is happening in JKI of leaking terminal roofs, Mr. Speaker. So what I request with out of respect, and I know you are a gentleman, you are a good man, allow the House to proceed, advise the SBC, because you are a learned senior counsel, advise the ISPC, that out of the neatness and respect and tradition of this House, let the minister be allowed to appear at a later date. It will be neater. Then we proceed with other matters. There is extension of ad hoc committee, Mr. Speaker, ad hoc committee by Senator Chute. There is the issue of debate of presidential State of the Nation address, SONA, to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to repeat what I have said. There are only 2 instances that you can fail to appear before Parliament. When you are only attending a cabinet meeting, Mr. Speaker. We shall not allow the CS Murkomen to take this House for granted. He was here. He knows the value of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have received so many complaints. Even Chute will tell you in Marsabit, Mogadishu roads in northern Kenya, the roads have been swept away, Mr. Speaker, by floods. So, Mr. Speaker, can you rule that we allow the CS to go and see those roads and leaking in roofs in JKI, then we give him a later day next week, then we proceed with the matters of the House. Considering, Mr. Speaker, our agenda is heavy. Mr. Speaker, please properly guide the House for the benefit of all of us, Mr. Speaker, and so that at least some of us can move with other issues that is on the order paper.
Senator Cherargei, Senator Boni, you are aware that under Standing Order 45-2, the chair has got the mandate to reorganize the order paper and the business of the House for the convenience of the Senate. And it is on this provision of this standing order that we made those rearrangements. But in view of what you have said, I will, as I've already stated, direct that Senator Chute proceeds with this motion, and for the neatness of the House, make relevant directives as regards the appearances of the cabinet secretaries before the House. Senator Chute, proceed to prosecute your motion. Senator Chute, proceed to prosecute your motion on the extension of time for the compensation of the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move this motion today on the extension of the mandate of the ad hoc committee on the compensation to the Kenya victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi on behalf of the chairperson. Mr. Speaker, that aware that at the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27 June 2023, the Senate resolved to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenyan victims of 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment. Mr. Speaker, realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of the ad hoc committee lapsed on 10th November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of work to execute to conclude in conducting the inquiry. So, Speaker, now, therefore, the Senate resolves to renew the mandate of the ad hoc committee for a further period of 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18th February 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you are aware, since its establishment, the committee has carried out various activities pertaining to its mandate. As a snapshot, the committee has held a number of meetings in which it transacted the following key businesses. A, Mr. Speaker, consideration of preliminary report from the law firm in the US that has been litigating on the compensation of the victims by the USA government. B, meeting with the victims of bomb blast tragedy and their representatives. C, Mr. Speaker, attended the bomb blast victim prayer day held on Saturday, 5th August 2023, and attended the 25th commemoration of the bomb blast held on 7th August 2023. E, conducted a public hearing. F, meeting with the advocates who have represented the bomb blast all through. Meeting with the National Council for Persons with Disability. H, meeting with the Ministry of Health. I, meeting with the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. J, meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs. K, meeting with the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Mr. Speaker, all the above-mentioned activities have been crucial for the committee as they have provided invaluable insights that will enable the committee to fulfill its mandate.
I hope you're closing because it's just as procedural motions in Tachute.
Sorry?
I don't think it will have a lot of issues that would warrant you to run us through all that.
Say that again.
I'm saying this is a mere procedural motion which you just can read it out, get somebody to second so that we progress, because I believe this House will not have much of an issue as regards extension of time.
Thank you very much. Let me, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let me say, before inviting someone to second, it has been 25 years, Mr. Speaker. The victims are waiting for compensation, and we've done a lot. We've, in fact, met with the Prime Cabinet Secretary about 3 weeks ago. We are intending to meet with the embassy, American embassy, anytime very soon. We are also intending very soon to visit the United States of America to convince or lobby for the Senate in America to pass a law for the compensation of the 1998 victims. We are seeking 100 days more time, and I now ask Senator Cheptumo to second this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief. Mr. Speaker, I serve in this committee also as a member with my neighbor here. Mr. Speaker, there is indeed compelling reasons and justification for this motion of extension of time. Mr. Speaker, as happily prosecuted by the mover, several Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, suffered a great deal during the bomb blast in 1998. Several Kenyans died, and many of them, Mr. Speaker, were maimed. And 25 years down the line, Mr. Speaker, they have not been compensated. Mr. Speaker, it should be known that the suffering Kenyans are going through for that period of time arose out of a bombing by terrorists, not because they were fighting the Kenyan population, with the Kenyan government, but it was an incident arising, targeting the United States of America embassy, Mr. Speaker. So this Kenyan suffered because of a situation that was existing between the terrorists and the American government. And so, Mr. Speaker, and for 25 years, really, there has been no attention given to these Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, this House, therefore, should be recognized and appreciated, Mr. Speaker, because for the first time, this House now has taken the step to seek compensation. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you as a member of this committee that, said by my colleague here, we've had meetings with many stakeholders. But Mr. Speaker, I want to escalate this conversation to the United States of America, to engage the Senate and other stakeholders, the embassy of the United States of America in Kenya, so that, Mr. Speaker, then we move to the final stage of this process. If we can only do it, Mr. Speaker, if we are given time. So I want to support and request the House, Mr. Speaker, to approve this request so that, Mr. Speaker, the committee, therefore, will finalize. Within 45 days, we are able to conclude and report back to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support. 100 days, Mr. Speaker, sorry.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that aware at the sitting of the Senate held on Thursday, 27 June 2023, the Senate resolves to establish an ad hoc committee to investigate the compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States of America Embassy in Nairobi and report back to the House within 3 months of its establishment, realizing that the extension period of 45 days of the tenure of the ad hoc committee lapsed on 10th of November 2023, yet the committee has a lot of work to execute to conclude in conducting the inquiry. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to renew the mandate of the ad hoc committee for a further period of 100 days from 10th November 2023 to enable the committee to finalize and table its report in the Senate on or before 18th February 2024. Now, Honorable Senators, I can see from the dashboard a good number of you seeking, I believe, to debate on this particular motion. And as I directed earlier on, the mover of the motion, this is just a procedural motion. I believe we will not take a lot of time to debate on this one, and we should be able to close on this in the shortest time possible. So I want to urge members, I will ask only 3 members to speak to this one so that we can move on to the next order paper. I believe Senator Mugatana.
Mr. Speaker, I will follow your guidance and be very brief. Mr. Speaker, I am grudgingly supporting the extension. I am grudgingly supporting because they have already come before this House for extension of their mandate before. And I've been listening carefully to the mover and the seconder to give us a reason, a solid reason why they need another extension of their mandate. And Mr. Speaker, I didn't hear any except that there is an unfinished work. But I would want to put my faith in the honorable gentlemen like Cheptumo, like Senator Chute, the leader of that team, Mama Agnes Kavindu. These are people that I believe are very honorable members who have distinguished themselves in various places we have worked with them. But with this caution, Mr. Speaker, that let them finish the work. Ad hoc committees are not supposed to stay in perpetuity. They should go, finalize the job, come back, give us a report, we finish with this matter. Because the same people who are waiting for that report, the same people they are fighting for are the same people who are going to tell them you are taking too long, you're not doing anything, you are just like the other people. And then Senate will come under another fresh attack. So we are asking them that may this be the last extension, let them not come back again, let them just finish the work and give us a report. So because they are good men there, Mr. Speaker, I will support the motion, but grudgingly, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Joyce.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to really support my one and only EPO Chair, National Coalition, Mheshimiwa Chute. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this ad hoc committee, I know, Honorable Speaker, I am one of the interested parties, and I have been following on a number of activities that they have been undertaking. This is one of the ad hoc that involves a number of stakeholders in terms of really finding out on how best they can address the issue of these victims, Honorable Speaker. So allow me, Honorable Speaker, to really agree with them in terms of extensions of time, because I have said it involves a number of ministries and even outside the country. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, they have a goodwill of the leadership of this country. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, they have to do the due diligence in a number of activities that it is involved. And I would want to request, because this is just a procedural motion, Honorable Speaker, that we really support and give them time. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Beatrice Ogwela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this motion and to appeal to this Honorable House to grant the ad hoc committee the 100 days that have been requested for an extension. Honorable Speaker, I'm also a member of this committee, and we have been looking at the compensation on a number of issues on loss of lives. And Honorable Speaker, this is loss of life of over 200 Kenyans that lost their lives on that day. Honorable Speaker, in the committee, we have been meeting different Kenyans from all over the country. As you notice, Honorable Speaker, that this was an happening that was most unfortunate, that Kenyans lost their lives, a number of them